Mantras of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says one must rely on the divine and yet do some enabling sadhana. The divine gives the fruit not by the measure of the sadhana, but by the measure of the soul's sincerity and its aspiration. With always our love and blessings, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri. The Book of the Divine Mother, Canto 2, The Adoration of the Divine Mother. A stillness absolute, incommunicable, meets the sheer self-discovery of the soul. A wall of stillness shuts it from the world. A gulf of stillness swallows up the sense and makes unreal all that mind has known, all that the laboring senses still would weave, prolonging an imaged unreality. Sense vast spiritual silence occupies space. Only the inconceivable is left, only the nameless without space and time. Abolished is the burdening need of life. Thought falls from us. We cease from joy and grief. The ego is dead and we are free from being and care. We have done with birth and death and work and faith. Darshan Day Messages, 21st Feb 1958, our Divine Mother's birthday. To celebrate the birth of a transitory body can satisfy some faithful feelings. To celebrate the manifestation of the eternal consciousness can be done at every moment of the universal history. But to celebrate the advent of a new world, the supramental world, is a marvelous and exceptional privilege. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo and our Divine Mother, taken from the compilations of the works of our Lord and our Divine Mother, Book a practical guide to integral yoga. Topic: past yogas and the integral yoga. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the way of integral yoga followed here has a different purpose from others, for its aim is not only to rise out of the ordinary ignorant world consciousness into the divine consciousness, but to bring the supramental power of that divine consciousness down into the ignorance of mind, life, and body, and to transform them to manifest the divine here and create a divine life in matter. This is an exceedingly difficult aim and difficult yoga. To many or most, it will seem impossible. All the established forces of the ordinary ignorant world consciousness are opposed to it and deny it and try to prevent it. And the sadhak will find his own mind, life, and body full of the obstinate impediments to its realization. If you can accept the ideal wholeheartedly, face all difficulties, leave the past and its ties behind you, and you are ready to give up everything and risk everything for this divine possibility, then only can you hope to discover by experience the truth behind it. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, those who seek the self by the old yogas separate themselves from the mind, life, and body and realize the self, and then proceed from realization of self to nirvana or some heaven and abandon life. The supramental yoga or the integral yoga is necessary for the transformation of terrestrial life and being, not for reaching the self. One must realize the self first, and afterwards can one realize the supermind. This integral yoga is new because it aims at the integrality of the divine in this world. The sadhaka of integral yoga who stops short at the impersonal is no longer a sadhaka of integral yoga. Without the action of the integral divine, there is no change of the whole nature. If it were not so, the mother would not be here, and I would not be here if a realization of the impersonal were sufficient. It is only that supramental that is all knowledge. All below that, from the overmind to matter, is ignorance. Our Lord continues to say, each man who enters the realms of yogic experience is free to follow his own path. But this integral yoga is not a path for anyone to follow, but only for those who accept to seek the aim, pursue the way pointed out, upon which a sure guidance is indispensable. It is idle for anyone to expect that he can follow this road far, much less go to the end by his own inner strength and knowledge without the true aid or influence. Even the ordinary long practiced yogas are hard to follow without the aid of the Guru. In this, which as it advances goes through the untrodden countries and unknown entangled regions, it is quite impossible. As for the work to be done, it is also not a work for any sadhak of any path. It is not either the work of the impersonal divine, who, for that matter, is not an active power, but supports impartially all work in the universe. It is a training ground for those who have to pass through the difficult and complex way of this integral yoga and none other. All work here must be done in a spirit of acceptance, discipline, and surrender, not with personal demands and conditions, but with a vigilant, conscious submission to control and guidance. Lord Sri Aurobindo says the fundamental difference is in the teaching that this is a divine, dynamic divine truth, and that into the present world of ignorance, that truth can descend, create a new truth consciousness, and divinize life. The old yogas go straight from mind to the absolute divine, regard all dynamic existence as ignorance, illusion, or Leela. When you enter the static and immutable divine truth, they say you pass out of cosmic existence. My aim is to realize and also to manifest the divine in the world, bringing down for the purpose a yet unmanifested power, which is the supermind. I have to bring it into the cosmic formula, and if so, I must realize the cosmic divine and become conscious of the cosmic self and the cosmic forces. But I have to embody it here. Otherwise, it is left as an influence only and not a thing fixed in the physical world. And it is through the divine, in the individual alone, that this can be done. Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it is no part of my integral yoga to have nothing to do with the world, with life, or to kill the senses or entirely inhibit their action. It is the object of my integral yoga to transform life by bringing down into it the light, power, and bliss of the divine truth and its dynamic certitude. This yoga is not a yoga of world-shunning asceticism, but of the divine life. This integral yoga accepts the value of cosmic existence and holds it to be a reality. Its object is to enter into a higher truth consciousness in which action and creation are the expression not of ignorance and imperfection, but of the truth, the light, the divine Ananda. But for that, surrender of the mortal mind and life and body to that higher consciousness is indispensable, since it is too difficult for the mortal human being to pass by its own effort beyond mind into a supramental consciousness in which the dynamism is no longer mental but of quite another power. Only those who can accept the call to such a change should enter into this integral yoga. Our Lord continues to say, integral yoga is new as compared with the old yogas. First, because of its aims, because it aims not at a departure out of the world and life into heaven or nirvana, but at a change of life and existence, not as something subordinate or incidental, but as a distinct and central object. If there is a descent in other yogas, yet it is only an incident on the way or resulting from the ascent. The ascent is the real thing. Here, the ascent is the first step. but it is a means for the descent. It is the descent of the new consciousness attained by the ascent that is the stamp and seal of the sadhana. Even the Tantra and Vaishnavism end in the release from life. Here the object is the divine fulfillment of life. Second, because the object sought after is not an individual achievement of divine realization for the sake of the individual, but something to be gained for the earth consciousness here, a cosmic, not solely a supracosmic achievement. The thing to be gained also is the bringing in of a power of consciousness, the supramental, not yet organized or active directly in earth nature, even in the spiritual life, but yet to be organized and made directly active. Third, because a method has been precognized for achieving this purpose, which is as total and integral as the aim set before it, that is, the total and integral change of the consciousness and nature, taking up all methods but only as a part action and present aid to others that are distinctive. I have not found this method as a whole or anything like it professed or realized in the old yogas. If I had, I should not have wasted my time in heaving out paths and in 30 years of search and inner creation when I could have hastened home safely to my goal in an easy canter over paths already blazed out, laid down, perfectly mapped, macadamized, made secure and public. Our yoga is not a retreading of old walks but a spiritual adventure. The purely monastic Vedanta says all is Brahman, life is a dream and unreality, only Brahman exists. One has nirvana or mukti, then one lives. Then one lives only till the body falls. After that, no, there is no such thing as life. What has to be overcome is the opposition of the ignorance that does not want the transformation of the nature. If that can be overcome, then all spiritual ideas will not form an obstacle. It is not intended to supramentalize humanity at large, but to establish the principle of the supramental consciousness in the earth evolution. If that is done, all that is needed will be evolved by the supramental power itself. It is not therefore important that the mission should be widespread. What is important is that the thing should be done at all in however small a number. That's the only difficulty. It is in the waking state that this realization must come and endure in order to be a reality of the life. If experienced in trance, it will be a superconscious state only for some part of the inner being, but not real to the whole consciousness. Experience and trance have their utility for the opening of the being and preparing it, but it is only when the realization is constant in the waking state that it is truly possessed. Therefore, in this integral yoga, much value is given to the waking realization and experience. This is not a yoga of bhakti alone. It is for, at least, it claims to be an integral yoga, that is, a turning of all the being in all its parts to the divine, so that the nature also may become one with the nature of the divine. Our Lord says the object of the sadhana is the opening of the consciousness to the divine and the change of the nature. Meditation or contemplation is one means to this, but only one means. Bhakti is another. work is another. Chitta Shuddhi was preached by the yogins as a first means towards realization, and they got by it the saintliness of the saint, the quietude of the sage, but the transformation of the nature of which we speak is something more than that, and this transformation does not come by contemplation alone. Works are necessary. Yoga in action is indispensable. The purpose of the old yogas is to get away from life to the divine, so obviously let us drop karma. The purpose of this integral yoga is to reach the divine and bring the fullness of what is gained into life. For that, yoga by works is indispensable. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, in our yoga, the nirvana is the beginning of the higher truth, as it is the passage from the ignorance to the higher truth. The ignorance has to be extinguished in order that the truth may manifest. You seem not to have understood the principle of integral yoga. The old yoga demanded a complete renunciation, extending to the giving up of the worldly life itself. But this integral yoga aims instead at a new, transformed life. But it insists as inexorably on a complete throwing away of desire and attachment in the mind, life, and body. Its aim is to refound life in the truth of the Spirit, and for that purpose to transfer the roots of all we are and do from the mind, life, and body to a greater consciousness above the mind. All must be given up to the Supreme Master of the Yoga. The power that works in this integral yoga is of a thorough-going character and tolerates in the end nothing great or small that is an obstacle to the truth and its realizations. The traditions of the past are very great in their own place in the past, but I do not see why we should merely repeat them and not go farther. In the spiritual development of the consciousness upon earth, the great past ought to be followed by a greater future. All other yogas regard this life as an illusion or a passing phase. The supramental yoga alone regards it as a thing created by the divine for a progressive manifestation and takes the fulfillment of the life and body for its object. I have objected in the past to the vairagya of the ascetic condition and the tamasic kind. I object to it for those who come to this yoga because it is incompatible with my aim which is to bring the divine into life. By yoga, we can rise out of falsehood into truth, out of weakness into force, out of pain and grief into bliss, out of bondage into freedom, out of death into immortality, out of darkness into light, out of confusion into purity, out of imperfection into perfection, out of self-division into unity, out of Maya into God. All other utilization of yoga is for special and fragmentary advantages, not always worth pursuing. Only that which aims at possessing the fullness of God is Purna Yoga or integral yoga. All yoga which takes us entirely away from the world is a high but narrow specialization of the divine tapasya. God, in His perfection, embraces everything. We must become all-embracing. In brief, by yoga we have to replace dualities by unity, egoism by divine consciousness, ignorance by divine wisdom, thought by divine knowledge, weakness, struggle and effort by self-contented divine force, pain and false pleasure by divine bliss. This is called the language that is used to bring down the kingdom of heaven on earth, realizing and effectuating God in the world. The principle of integral yoga is not perfection of human nature as it is, but a psychic and spiritual transformation of all the parts of the being through the action of an inner consciousness, then of a higher consciousness which works on them, throws out the old moments or changes them into an image of its own, and so transmutes the whole into the lower into the higher nature. It is not so much the perfection of the intellect as a transformation of it, a transformation of the mind, the substitution of the larger, greater principle of knowledge, and so with the rest, all the rest of the being. This is a slow and difficult process. The road is long, and it is hard to establish even the necessary basis. The old existing nature resists and obstructs, and difficulties rise one after another till they are overcome, says our Lord. Sure.